This morning on For the Record, a special time for kids look at childhood obesity. Good morning, I'm Neil Heinen. Recipe for Health, our Time for Kids topic for the year, has been so successful in raising public awareness and engaging our partners in focusing on this important children's issue that we've decided to extend it through 2012. The concept's pretty simple: healthier eating for healthier kids. But the scope is broad and action steps are many, and there is still a considerable amount of both public education and policy discussing yet to be done. We're going to do 3 segments this morning on 3 different aspects of the issue. Later, we will talk with a chef instructor from an innovative classroom project and a school district representative on school lunches. But we begin with Dr. Susan Eisensee, who is back with us, a family practitioner from Dean Care, whose focus now is exclusively weight management, huh?
I have the privilege of doing weight management full time.
That says something, that's become a subspecialty in healthcare.
It has. Actually, there is a board certification on bariatricians, and bariatric is, the root word of that is overweight, obesity.
You know, it seems like, and I guess this is probably from a news perspective, but there's been so much attention focused on childhood obesity in particular in the last 3 or 4 years. It almost sometimes seems ubiquitous. You turn on every television station, every newspaper's got something on it. From your perspective, where do we stand today? What kind of progress are we making or not?
Well, I think the fact that it's become an awareness in the public is absolutely positive and absolutely needed. We as Americans do not feed our kids properly. And it starts from the parents. It starts from infancy. We actually have a full-time dietitian in our program that's functioning primarily on pediatric obesity. In the state of Wisconsin, 13% of the children are obese, which means they're above the 95th percentile for height, for weight in their category. We are not leading. We're actually the middle of the pack. The most obese state in the nation is Mississippi. But 75% of those obese children go on and become obese adults.
Help me with this, with from infancy, doctor. What does that mean? I mean, this is too much sugar and fat in formula, or I mean, where?
Everything. And I have people, when I was practicing in family medicine and doing primary care, people would start to introduce whole milk and juices to their children at a young age. Juice is not necessarily good for young children. It's high in sugar and provides a lot of empty calories. It's better to get your nutrition from fresh fruits and vegetables, or even canned or frozen fruits and vegetables, than it is from juice, because there's a lot of sugar in it.
How much of this is sort of parents thinking about what's good for kids? How much is it what kids actually will like or eat or
well, parents
drink?
Feed their children, and parents do the grocery shopping. So the parents are the ones making the decisions. And we as Americans, when you walk into a grocery store, the best foods are on the perimeter. And yet they're not always the cheapest foods. So if you're on a limited budget, you oftentimes will buy junk food. And food is something that makes people comfortable. It satisfies emotions. And there really is a lot of studies going on now on that connection between the brain and the stomach and food and neurohormonal pathways that make us feel good. And as parents, we think, well, our kids want candy or our kids want cookies, and so we buy them for them. But that's not the best thing for them.
Because that's what we like? I mean, are parents feeding their kids what they like?
Yes, and it's become a tradition in our society. What do we do when we get together with people? We eat. So we create the environment. It's emotional, it's environmental, it's portion sizes, it's everything, and we create it. And if we don't set good examples as parents, and as healthcare providers, and as chefs, and as school teachers, we're not doing our job for society.
You know, it's interesting to think about this in terms of little kids. I think with adults, we have conversations about convenience, what's prepared and what the time to prepare stuff for ourselves. When you think of healthy food for very young kids, for infants and 1 or 2, is there healthy food available that you can buy, or is it a matter of making the food?
No, there's healthy food out there. You have to make the right choices. There's nothing wrong with creating your own foods for infants and pureeing things, but there's a lot of healthy food choices now for young children, for infants. You have to start when you get your children to start to eat real food and table food. We as parents need to set the example. We need to get more whole grains rather than the white breads. We need to make sure there's always fruits and vegetables with every meal. There's plenty of opportunity out there, and as you'll discuss later in your segment, there's a lot of good food choices out there, and the schools are doing a really good job of trying to set a good example.
When we talk about vegetables, for example, will kids eat vegetables?
Absolutely. Children, when they're first exposed to a food, may not like it. So as a parent, you can't stop at one time of trying. You need to introduce things multiple times to children to get them to eat them. In our home, my kids ate very unusual vegetables. When people found out my kids were eating this food or that food, it's because we always made, excuse me, a family meal very important. And family meals are a thing of the past, but family meals get kids to see that you as an adult, as a parent, are eating properly, and therefore they will.
Give me an example of a family, of a mom and a child or something who comes to see you. How do you start, and what's the scope of the services that you offer?
Well, what we do primarily is working with our dietitian, but we also work with them one-on-one. And for children 2 to 6, you always have to have a parent there. For kids between 6 and 12, you probably need to have a parent there. When you get into the teenage years, a lot of times they do better working with each other. So we do support groups geared towards teenagers, because kids influence each other a tremendous amount as teenagers, as you know. So what we do is we don't talk about the word diet, we talk about lifestyle changes. And never do I tell a child they're going on a diet. And what we talk about is getting more active, a minimum of an hour or 2 a day of activity. And the parent should be doing it too. And always positive reinforcement to the child. So, you know, if you're out on a walk, come on, let's walk another block. Let's take the dog for another block. You're doing a really good job. You're running really fast. You're beating me. Make it very, very positive. And talk about making the better choices, but you as a parent setting the example. And always being positive. I don't care if somebody's not losing weight, because for kids, they're always growing taller. So their BMI and their percentage of where they fall on the growth charts is going to get better. And that's what we look at.
Dr. Eisensee, thank you very much for coming back. Nice to see you again. When we come back, we're going to talk about school lunches right after this. We're back. Our discussion this morning is on Recipe for Health, our Time for Kids topic this year, which is focusing on childhood obesity and the many components of it. And we move now to school lunches with the Food and Nutrition Coordinator for the Madison Metropolitan School District, Iris Triado-noonan. Iris, nice to see you again. Welcome. Unfortunately, school lunches is often portrayed as sort of the bad guy here in childhood obesity. Kind of bring us up to date on Madison in particular, but how people like you are looking at the role of school lunches in childhood nutrition.
Well, obviously the school lunch have progressed and changed over the years. Over the 16 years that I've been with the district, we have the largest change on requirements by the USDA. The school lunch is regulated by nutritional parameters that are established by USDA, who fund us. So we have to meet those requirements in order to get the funding. I have seen over the years that our offering have not changed, but the actual nutrient value of the content of the food have changed over the years, but not the requirements. And this year, with the new reauthorization, is the largest, most impacting change that we're going to have.
Is that the food bill?
Yes, that's the food bill that just came through, and that is going to change how we do business. And it has changed over the years on the emphasis of we're here to feed kids versus we're here to, in addition to feed the kids, feed and educate them along with the food. Dr. Sue said something very important, which is parents have a very important role. Okay, I can feed broccoli to the students, but if they don't eat it, I don't have the funding. For me, it's important that the child take the meal so I can get paid for it. If the student decline the meals because they don't like it, then we are stuck with no funding. This last year, we did a huge change with this, start offering a dual choice. That way, the child have between 2 different menus to pick what they want to eat. In the last years, we have done an increase on the number of fresh fruit and vegetables that we offer to the schools. So that's the largest change that I have seen in the years that is coming for. I mean, change takes time and very careful planning, so we are on that process.
Are you seeing any increase in young people's acceptance of some of these healthier choices?
Some of it. Some of it, we see a lot more children trying to eat more fruit and vegetables. Another change that we just introduced this last year is that we're going into the lunchroom and along with REAP, offering fresh fruit and vegetables to the kids. Just give it to them to eat it and see what they think about it. And that creates a preamble to when they see it back on the lunch again. And they recognize that food and then say, now I can eat it because I already tasted and tried it.
So let me get this straight, Iris. It's not that schools are prevented from serving fresh fruit and vegetables. It's that the cost is prohibitive because the federal government will only pay for what is currently allowed and under certain guidelines.
Correct. With the reauthorization, there is an extra 6 cents per meal allowing for the fresh fruit and vegetable. That doesn't cover to start with it. So what happened, and the other thing is that we have to meet the requirement before they even give us the 6 cents. So we have to do the upfront expense in order to get that money back. And we have to qualify. We have to demonstrate to the Department of Public Instruction and USDA that we are offering those requirements, those minimum requirements. So yes, we're very limited on what we can offer based on the cost of the product, and we have to be self-sufficient. We do not take money from the district itself. All our funding comes from the school lunch program.
How much of it, I mean, and I just always assume that part of it, we have to change, it has to be cool. It has to be cool to eat healthy food. Is the First Lady making any difference? Is there, have you seen any change in attitude about kids who think, you know what, it's cool to eat healthy food?
It is. I mean, it is changing, and kids are more interested in trying new things, and they're more interested in exploring. But it depends the exposure that they have at home. If they are encouraged at home to eat this. In the past, most of the phone calls I get is like, you're offering pizza too often, and that's what I buy at home. You know, serve casserole to the child, but I put a casserole and nobody wants to eat it. Yep. So again, if the kid doesn't take the meal, I don't get paid for it. So I'm wasting all my money. So I have to look for items that the kids are gonna take and eat. And that's the biggest challenge that we confront every day.
Now, some people are familiar with Badger Rock and this new charter school, which is going to have urban agriculture as kind of a theme. Is the district looking at that as perhaps an example of how food might be talked about differently? Yes,
I mean, that's a program that is gonna be out of the box, like we sort of speaking. One of the biggest benefit that we have is they're going to have a full kitchen, where most of our schools do not have kitchen, do not have kitchen equipment on site. So
a lot of people don't, I think, don't understand that.
Yeah. So this is a good example of what we are going to be able to do if we get the funding, if we get the exposure.
And another issue that comes up occasionally is just where the lunch hour falls in the day and how much time kids get to eat. Is that something that you think about? Is that part of the discussion about childhood nutrition?
I mean, that's one of our things. We need to get the food cooked fast and served fast. It's ironic, the lunch hour, when it's only 10 to 15 minutes for most elementary and middle schools. Until high schools, you only get a full hour, and most students just want to get out of the campus, you know, to take air or take a break. And This year, analyzing that with the students, we're coming with some lunch to go, where the students can just grab this lunch and go outside and eat it off campus, but at least we're offering that meal where sometimes they will not even eat during that hour.
Iris, before we go, do you see kids worried more about obesity, just from their perspective?
I think so. I think that kids are worried about it, and the reauthorization did a huge change, which is they give now a range of calories, a minimum and a maximum. So we're not tied up to meet this minimum of calories. So now we can kind of balance that menu through a week that it meets an average of calories, and also offer versus serve, where the kids can pick and choose what they want to eat or not.
Yeah. Thanks for joining me, Iris. Nice to see you again. And when we come back, we were going to bring on a partner in all of this, REAP, right after this. And we conclude our look at this particular episode of Time for Kids for the Record, Recipe for Health, with the Chef in the Classroom program. And Iris talked a little bit about it. It's a relationship between REAP, which stands for Research, Education, Action, Policy on Food. Clumsy. The acronym REAP is much easier to understand, but few people know what it actually means. And REAP is a really important community partner in the whole urban agriculture conversation. But this program, Liz Chapa is a chef instructor who works on the Chef in the Classroom program. And just kind of tell us what this program's all about, Liz.
Yeah, so Chef in the Classroom is a program that tries to connect kids with fresh food, local sustainable food, and farmers. So what we try to do is expose the kids to fresh local food by bringing it into the classroom and talking about the various farms where we've foraged this food. And then they prepare a meal upon our instruction, and we work with them with that.
So what do you start with the raw variety and let them taste various produce?
Yes.
And then teach them how to make it into a recipe?
That's what we do. Yeah, so we expose them to things like beauty heart radish, which a lot of them don't see on their home table.
Even if they see radishes at all, beauty heart is a specific?
It's a specific variety that's very beautifully neon pink in the center, and they get a kick out of that. What I like to do is I like to bring food that has dirt still on it. So I also work at a farm, and so I have privilege to go and forage some food before the class, and I bring it in and I talk to them about how do you wash lettuce? Something as simple as that. There might be a bug in there. A lot of them squirm and they get nervous, and what do you mean? And I tell them, you know, your food comes from the earth and from the ground, and so they're really making that connection with where food comes from, not the grocery shelf. Although it does come from there also.
It can.
It does. But that's not what the program's about. It's about fresh, local produce.
So do you find that most kids, Liz, will taste something even if they've just never had it before?
I do. I do. And I think a lot of times they're even surprised that they like it. We talk, at the beginning of the semester, we talk about different adjectives that they can use to describe food. So they're not allowed to use words like yum or yuck. They have to say that's spicy, or that's sharp, or that's sweet, or that's tangy. And so we give them this whole sheet of words that they can use to describe food. And if they taste something that doesn't agree with their palate, we ask them to find a word to describe that. So then it's just a way of teaching and exposure to that.
And then turning it into a recipe is intriguing to me, because I would think there would be kids who might taste something and they think, I don't know if I like that. Then they taste it again in combination with something else, and all of a sudden it becomes something that they are more interested in.
Definitely. For instance, a bitter green like frise or radicchio, and then you put a strawberry vinaigrette with it. Well, all of a sudden you take a bitter green and you add a real simple olive oil, balsamic vinegar, macerated strawberries, a little shallot, and you toss that all together. And they're like, wow, this is delicious. So that's, to me, the best part about it, is to get them to enjoy their food.
You know, in the whole food conversation, I think it's pretty well acknowledged that the next frontier is really cooking. I mean, we're doing a pretty good job now of farm to market to table, but teaching people how to cook again is really a challenge. When you work with these young people, do you get that sense that this is going to be a generational change we're going to have to go through here?
I think that there's a lot of interest amongst teenagers, middle schoolers, in becoming chefs. I think that with the Food Network.
Yeah, well, it is. It's pretty hot career right now.
It's pretty cool to be a chef.
Yeah, that's right.
You get to have some style. You get to be on TV. And it's funny, they always want to know, are you on TV? Are you a chef on TV? And unfortunately,
yes, you are, as a matter of fact.
And so I do think that there is this movement of children that think that eating healthy and becoming vegetarian or those sorts of things are all really neat to think about.
All right, so that connect the dots then back to childhood obesity. You see this having an impact, and you see kids responding to it on that level, health and weight?
Yes, I do. And it can be a touchy topic, that whole weight topic, but I think that in Chef in the Classroom we discuss nutrition and health and how choice A is better than choice B. So yes, you could have the French fries occasionally, but it's really good to just have some roasted potatoes. And it's the same vegetable. And so we try to give them the knowledge to make proper choices and good choices, and know that your life doesn't have to be all salads.
You know, it's kind of interesting. In some ways, it puts these kids in a position, gives them the opportunity to take these recipes home.
Absolutely.
Right?
And that's one of the things that we do with the program is the kids get a 3x5 note card of the dish that we made, with all the ingredients listed and the preparation instructions, and they can go home and they can make it for their family, for their friends. They can show off. They can be the chef for the day. And
give them a little white toque.
They like that.
Liz, thanks very much.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it. We're going to come back and wrap up For the Record right after this. You were not. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next Sunday on For the Record.